For the people that don't really realize, I met Kelsea because she was literally came into Black River Studios and was recording a vocal. What were you working on? Was that one of your songs? How did that happen? What were you even doing?
Oh my gosh, it was so crazy. So I was in college because my mom said I had to go to college until I could make a living outside of college. So I had a meeting with Celia Froelich, who ran Black River Publishing at the time, who we love. Basically, I went in and I played her a couple songs that I'd written by myself because I hadn't really co-written at that point too much. And she was like, okay, well, I'd love to put you with some of our writers, and I'd also love to get you in our studio just to see how you work in a studio, because I told her I really wanted to be an artist too. And so, I mean, you met me in like the test phase of her putting me in the studio to see how I demoed, I guess.
Do you remember the first time that we met? You literally were like, hey, come here, I just wrote this song, I want to play you this song or whatever. It was in one of the offices up there, and I mean, you were just so excited, and you were like, I just finished the song, and it was the room that Josh Osborne wrote in a lot, right across from Celia's office, and we went in there, and you just played me the song. I was just blown away, because I mean,
I remember it was called Through With You.
I don't even know what the song was. I just remember being blown away.
I totally remember this.
First of all,
through you.
You were excited, man. That's why it made it easy to work with. I mean, what was the first song we wrote? Out of the Blues, way back.
Out of the Blue, yeah.
You came in with that idea too. You were just so far ahead of the game. And I had been writing at that publishing company maybe for a year and a half before that. And then here you come. You're not even like signed up yet. And you're walking in with ideas and all these things. I just remember the first session that we did being super just inspired by your just your energy, as far as like your go-getness. Like you just weren't waiting on anybody to do anything. Y'all were writing 2-3 times a day, sometimes finishing songs like that a day. Do you remember those days? What was that like?
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, that whole year was like me, you, Josh, you guys were my core writing team. And like, we just wrote all the time. That's all I did.
You didn't care who you were writing with. You were just making the best of each write and just grinding through it every day, which is huge.
Well, and making connections and having a community is such a huge part of things working. And I think our crew at that point, like we all came up together. We didn't rely on, like I was saying earlier, a bigger name. We didn't rely on anything else. We relied on each other and our craft and our art. I don't know. I think there's something to be said for that. It's about building a community around you full of people, again, that you trust, that you feel creatively inspired by. To all come up together, you know?
Well, whenever you first started getting into the pub deal, you were in school at the time, weren't you? Where were you going to school?
I was still at Lipscomb, but as soon as I signed with publishing, I dropped out. So I went to college for 2 years, and then I was signed as a songwriter for 1 year, and at the end of that year, I signed the record deal. So I only wrote as a songwriter full time for a year.
Yep. Well,
broke is a joke.
Oh, dude, hey. Me too, man. Me too. We were still writing, just confident like this. That's what I love, that, you were writing in a way that this is going to work out. Things are going to work out for me. We're on to something. And I feel like half of it too is we weren't necessarily under the pressure of creating an album. We were just being creative. We were just we were just compiling all these songs and then deciding the cream of the crop or what you felt at the time would work best, So that's what I feel like is different about making albums now, because now you know that you only have a certain amount of time. It's like, it has to be a different pressure, because when you're first getting started, it's like you could do anything. We could do anything, It's
difficult because people kind of think of you with one sound, and that's what broke through. Like, the first record had such a unique sound that you and Jason made, and it was like this perfect blend of country and pop and a youthful energy that you guys captured so well. In my brain, I was like, okay, now how do I grow up in my sound and just like me as a human and do it well where people can still identify me with a sound, but I'm also allowed to grow. And I think that's something that I still struggle with, from writing to making albums. Like I want to be true to that first album and that girl that broke through, but still grow. And it's a hard line to walk, for sure.
Well, you keep talking about your sound. How long did you write or kind of toy around with different ideas or different co-writers before you locked into that sound?
First album? I mean, this is no joke. Like when we wrote Love Me Like You Mean It, we knew that was it. I've always also just been a big gut person. I think it's really important to ask questions to people that are smarter than you, but also still not devalue your gut. And so I've always really tried to stay true to that and honest to that. And I Love Me Like You Mean It, as soon as we wrote it, I was like, no, that's it. And then Yeah Boy followed suit, and Peter Pan followed suit, and and it made sense. It went together.
When it was first released, like, honestly, do you remember what your expectations were of it? Like did you think maybe this will be a hit? Or did you just know?
No, the only thing I really remember, I wish I would have written down everything.
Me too.
I really wish I would have kept a journal, because everything happens so fast, and it's so much all the time that I really don't remember as much as I wish I would have. But the only thing I really remember is this one really specific meeting at the label. We were picking Love Me Like You Mean It as the first single, but we had the first time Peter Pan and Love Me in the conversation. I remember really vividly everyone saying, Love Me is the first single, but Peter Pan's the game changer. And it was. And I remember that meeting just thinking, okay, so we're saying like Love Me Like You Mean It is the one that's we're gonna play the game with this song. Like, but we're gonna play the long game, because we know that the one that's really gonna break the floodgates open. I remember that conversation really early on.
That is awesome. And I think this is also important. If I remember right, correct me, but you had played a show before you had the deal and started touring, or were you just like, what was that like?
I had never played a full band show. All I had ever done was do writers' rounds at like Puckett's and Bluebird and Listening Room, that kind of stuff.
And when you see your live show now, you're just so seasoned. You communicate with the crowd. You have an energy that like your whole performance throughout the night is like a song in itself. It's up and down. What do you feel like helped you do that?
I was a student. I am a student of live shows. I mean, we've gone to concerts together. I don't look away. I don't drink and talk to my friend while I'm there. I study it, and I study tour DVDs. When I first moved to Nashville, any live music video or tour DVD that came out, I was 15. I didn't have anything else to do. I would get home from school and I would study them. Didn't matter what genre, didn't matter what artist. I love a good tour intro. I think you're setting the tone for the entire night. I want the Goosies on my arms. Oh, yeah. I always looked for the acoustic moment. Like, how long does it take for them to play a slow song? Is it just them and their guitar? Does their band go away? Like, I just became a student of live shows. And so I think even though I've only really been touring for five years, I've learned a lot because I've just studied it.
That's so interesting, because I feel like I've done the same with albums and audio production, because you really think about, well, how long is the intro before you get to a lyric, or how long before you get to a chorus? And like, you do the same thing for your live show. And that just shows if you're passionate about something and you want to figure something out, you're going to do whatever it takes,
That's right.
Besides touring, well, how's your writing changed? Because now you're gone all the time. I mean, you're having to keep up with all these dates. You're doing TV shows. I mean, all this cool stuff. How has that whole process changed with writing and getting this information for the next album,
I rarely write in Nashville anymore, actually. It's really hard for me. When I'm home, I really try to just be home. In the last few years, really had to recalibrate just for my mental health. To be honest with you, I got really run down, and it's because I like to work, because it's not work, it's play, and it's fun, and it's achieving a dream that I have, but I allow myself to get really run down. And I hit this place where I kind of realized that I didn't have a real life anymore, even though I was newly married and all this stuff. I was like, none of this feels like it's something I'm investing in anymore. So I don't know. I changed management, and I'm with a manager now that really allows me to have a balance. And so when I started taking that time, I realized that when I'm home, I need to be home. I need to invest in my friendships. I need to invest in my marriage. I need to clean my house. I need to pick up my dog shit. You know what I mean? Like, I just need to be like super normal. So I've found that it really helps me when I'm gone, whether it's touring or doing TV or whatever it is. I like to find ways to write around that, whether it's bringing writers out, which you've done with me a couple times, or fitting in a writing retreat in between routing of touring or whatever. I like when I'm gone, I think I'm in a better headspace of me as an artist, which helps me write to that. if that makes sense.
When you're gone on the road, you want to focus on that. You want to focus on your brand and how to make it better in your next album.
Yeah.
But when you're home, you want to be normal. You just want to be a human.
And have stuff to write about. I also think it's really hard when you're touring all the time and working all the time. Like, what am I going to make a record about? Like, oh, I played Philly tonight. Like, no one cares, you know?
Whenever you made this new record, how do you feel like it was different, or the process was different from the first two?
It was just all over the place. Like, there was not a streamlined process this time because I was so busy. I mean, it was just like, with every song on it, with the exception of a country song, as soon as I wrote the song, I knew it was going to be a part of the project. I would write it and then live with it and then get married to the demo and then decide that I just wanted to bring that demo a little bit farther into what I thought would sound like a record. And then that was the record. You know, it kind of was like a quilt. None of it really made sense together until it was together.
Dude, I agree with that, but I feel like it does make sense together. I would call this thing an overall acoustic pop thing, because every song has acoustic instruments, but then each track evolves. By the end of the track, you have so much production, but nothing's overdone. And that's what I love about it, is that it's self-serving in the song. You know, even in something like, I think it's LA or one of them, there's not even like a snare drum or like a backbeat to it. It's just all vibe. It's your vocal on top of an acoustic guitar. So that's what was so awesome to me. It's like, I feel like our first albums and stuff that we did, so we wanted to create this huge sound of being in stadiums and stuff. And I feel like we did that, but this is a completely different sound, man. And I really do feel privileged to dive into it and just be a fan. And I'm saying that from the heart, because it inspires me. It makes me, it makes me want to write. It's just such a necessary thing for you to had made this album, and I've enjoyed it. And it hits me like Taylor Swift's sophomore record did, where I listen to these songs and they inspire me. I feel like Love Me Like You're, of course, I like the most girliest shit on there, but Love Me Like a Girl. I love that so much. Thanks. That's my favorite. That's probably one of my favorite tracks between LA and, but there's all kinds of different great stuff on here, whether it be the vocal production, whether it be the way your voice sounds, dude. What's up with your voice? Like, it has this maturity.
Honestly, one of the things that I'm most proud of, like on the record, but just in general, you know me so well. I grew up listening to belters. Like, I grew up being obsessed with big female voices that can like sing to the rafters, like the Kelly Clarksons and the Martina McBrides and that kind of stuff. So I always thought, like, to be a good singer, you had to do that. And like, that's not how my voice works. And I really think I tried to write that way and to sing that way until recently, because I would find my voice getting so worn out on tour because I was trying to sing a way that my voice isn't made to sing. And It's been this really fun process of me. Like, I think I just had to like deconstruct the idea that a good singer is a singer that can belt, and a good singer is a singer that knows their voice. And I just had to start learning my voice. And I really started to fall in love with it. Like, I always resented my voice because I couldn't hit notes like Marin and I couldn't hit notes like Carrie. But now I'm like, oh, but I can do this. And I have this, like you're saying, like a phrasing swag that's my thing. Yes. And so I think that's one of the things I'm really proud of that I've really discovered is just like what I can do rather than focusing on what I can't do and still trying to do it, which is stupid.
It takes a while to come into that. And I feel like I'm coming into that in my own. And I'm not intimidated by these other producers in town that I once felt like, well, why can't I do what they do? Because you do what you do. And if you're true to that, then you're going to be the best at that.
That's right. I
totally hear that in your voice on this. You're doing things with your voice and there's more emotion and there's more of these things. And honestly, it gets me thinking like, damn, like who did that vocal? Who got that vocal out of her, So where'd you track these vocals? What was that process?
Honestly, it depends on the song. The whole record's really eclectic, which obviously is the first time I've done that. A lot of the vocals were from the tour bus. A lot of the vocals were from a random room in an Airbnb in Florida. If you mute the vocals, you can hear my bus rattling, and you can hear kids outside playing on the beach. Like, I didn't want it to be perfect. Like, I just wanted it to be about the songs and how I wrote them and where I wrote them and the emotional vocal performance of where they were written. And I don't know, I didn't overthink it at all, which I think kind of shows a little bit.
Yeah, and you titling it Kelsey. When I first read that, I was like, this must be what she feels like is her true identity. This is her new chapter. This is the next thing. So reading that title and diving into the music after hearing it, like I totally get it, dude. I feel like it's important from the get-go. You've just always been so fearless. You do, man. You don't think. You just said, this feels right. I'm going to do this. And you've been rewarded for that, right?
Thanks. Yeah, it's the gut thing, I think. Just trusting yourself.
You changed my life whenever you told the record label that you wanted me to produce your record. Now, at somebody that age that had nothing going on, what was it about you that made that decision that literally changed my life? And you could have been working with anybody. They would have paid for you to work with any producer. So why did you make that decision?
Oh, that's nice of you to say. I don't really care about names. I never really have. I still really don't. So I've always just wanted to work with my friends. I want to work with people that it's not about, the name or any of that. It's about what we do together. And I also think there's a trust. Like me and you have always had a trust in whether it's in a writing sense or in a production sense. I think you're able to have that when you put in the time with someone. And so I think that's just way more valuable than having X, whoever, like coming in and not really knowing you and producing a new record on a new female on an independent label the same way he's going to produce a star. It doesn't work that way in my brain. So I've always led with like, you're my friend. I trust you. We've walked this path together. Let's keep doing it kind of thing.
That's still, man, that takes so much courage and so much like confidence at that level to just decide, you know what, I'm not going to trust these labels and what they have for me. I'm going to go with my friends. I don't know, man. That's just super cool.
I swear to God, the best gift that I had was being so blindly naive. I say it.
Yeah.
I say it all the time because I did not know. I did not know that females weren't working. I did not know that an independent label was different than a major. I didn't know anything. And I'm so grateful I didn't, because that's what gave me that. I know. Well, that's what gave us that blind confidence to be like, oh, well, no one told me I can't. So of course I can, And I think that's why we had a lot of those early opportunities that we had, was just because of that super blind freedom, which I'm so grateful for.
Also, I want you to explain like the importance of changing up the rooms that you're writing with, like, and the writers and the producers. Like, how has that influenced your creativity and made your sound better?
This go around, I was just like, I want to write with artists. I want to write with people that aren't necessarily country writers. I just want to try it all. Like, I just want to try it. And so that's why you see like pop writers on this album, and that's why you see artist writers on this album. It was just me intentionally saying like, I've never done that before, let's do it. I think third album's a fun time. With like the success of the first two, it allowed me to play a little bit and to kind of trial and error a few things, and like, God, getting to write with people that are so outside of my comfort zone, like Ed freaking Sheeran. I that day was like, what is happening? And I was sharpened as a writer so much that day. And writing with Taylor Parks, who's like, there you go.
Oh my God, dude, how can you just skip by in conversation and drop Ed Sheeran? You got to tell me about this. You got to tell me where y'all wrote this. Like, who brought the title? Like, there's so much I want to know about this, right?
I was spending a lot of time in LA. I was doing some stuff with The Voice, and I had one day in between the full day of shooting, day off, and then I was going to meet the tour bus and go back to the Keith tour. So I was just going to take the day off to sleep. But I was messaging with Ross a lot, and he was sending me a lot of tracks to write to while I was alone, because I would still want to work that muscle. And so I messaged him and I was like, hey, I have a day off tomorrow. Can you send me something to write to? And he was like, hey, you know what? I just actually got off the phone. Ed wants to write. Are you around? And I had no reference to think it was Ed Sheeran. I was like, what are you talking about? Who's Ed? And he was like, Sharon. He wants to write tomorrow at 10 a.m. And he sent that text to me at 7 p.m. I was in LA. I got my ass on a red eye. He sent me 4 tracks for the flight. I wrote like little bits to each track, went home, showered, went straight to the right. We wrote all 4 songs.
Oh my gosh.
It was
what
insane.
were the titles? The titles of those 4 songs.
Okay, so Love and Hate's the one that made the album. The story behind that was I had the verse, but I thought it was the chorus. So I played it like a chorus. Ed grabbed the guitar and he was like, yeah, no, that's cool, but like what if that's the verse and like we just lower the melody and then we just like write an even better chorus, and then the entire chorus just fell out of his mouth. And I was like, you're a freak. It was crazy. We wrote Love and Hate pretty acoustic. And then the other ones, there's one called Number on Me, one called Whoa, and then one called, Familiar. And those were all from the tracks that Ross had sent me the night before. So we would write to the track on those.
Dude. Well, dude, another thing, I mean, we got Halsey. We got Kenny Chesney. I mean, Kenny Chesney's pretty much singing your background vocals.
It's so crazy.
How does that even happen?
The collaborations are interesting because, I tried real hard on those first 2 albums to get a collaboration.
Yeah.
And everyone said no.
Yeah.
And I tell that in interviews and they laugh and I'm like, I'm not joking and I'm not saying it to be funny or like even self-deprecating. It's the truth. Everyone said no, this. So this time around, like, I had the Chainsmokers collaboration and I loved every minute of it. Like I loved blending that world. I loved learning about that world. And I loved having country fans discover that side of me. And so I really wanted there to be a collaboration on this project, but I only wanted it to be with people that I was friends with, or that it was a really intentional thing. I didn't want it to be like, oh, this person has a lot of followers, like I'm going to capitalize on that. Like that's just not it. You know what I mean? With Halsey and I, she's one of my best friends. It's really random and it's really awesome. And so I wrote The Other Girl with her in mind and went to her house and played it for her. And that's how that happened. It was super organic. She was the only person I would have had on that song. It was only her, And then with half of my hometown, I think I just had this blind moment of boldness and I texted the song to Kenny. I have no business even having Kenny's phone number. And I texted him the song out of nowhere. I mean, we were not even friends at that point.
Here we are, another evidence of somebody that is so bold enough to think that this is going to happen for me because it just is.
You just have to get comfortable with the fact that the worst thing that can happen is it doesn't work.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing. And the best thing that can happen is you get Kenny Chesney on your song. Like, you just have to weigh the odds.
That would just been the last feature I would have predicted. And so to see it and hear it and experience it, it's just super cool,
He's a legend. I mean, I still can't believe he's on there.
But dude, The Way I Used to, that's a freaking vibe, man. The track on that is, I bet that will be awesome live, right?
Yeah, I definitely think that's one that we're going to make a big part of the live show. That one's interesting. So I have always liked to be a part of the idea all the way through in the writing process. I don't like getting songs and changing stuff and calling myself a writer. That's just not how I'm wired. I value the fact that I'm a songwriter and I value other people as songwriters. So I never want to be an artist that does that. However, with The Way I Used to, this song is an exception because it was not my idea and it's not my hook. This is what happened. I was writing with Steph Jones. And so we were on our way to a write in LA and I was super uninspired. And I was like, Steph, can you just play me some stuff that you've been working on? I just need to get my head in the game or whatever. And she played me a couple amazing songs. And then she was like, we started writing this idea at a writing camp a couple months ago. It's not done yet, but it's cool. And she played me the chorus, the hook of The Way I Used to. And it was a guy singing it. And it was like super like Purpose Bieber vibe. And I was like, okay, how can I make this for me? Like, this is so not for me at this point, but I need it because it's just undeniable. Like, It was just such an undeniable hook. Does somebody love you the way I do? I mean, the way I used to. I was like, how have I not heard that before? It already had like 5 writers on it from the camp because they were writing it. And then 2 people walked in the room and changed a couple things. So they were writers on it. Anyway, and I was like, screw it. And so I rewrote the verses, and I rewrote a bit of the chorus and made it more for me and changed the key and tried to make it a little more country. And that's what you hear on the record. So that's the first time I've done anything like that.
Not being worried about all these other writers on it, seeing the value in that song and not caring and just being like, I need this. Dude, that's awesome. You know, a lot of people will be like, expect, you know, a lot more than that, you know?
Yeah.
It's just a different thing when you approach a song for, I just want to make it the best it can be. I don't care who's associated with it, man.
Yeah,
so,
it doesn't matter.
One more question about the Halsey track, because I'm just curious about where she tracked her vocal. Were y'all in the same session? Did she do that on her own? Was she in Nashville? Like, how did that come about?
It was really important for me, both for Halsey and Kenny. I really wanted to be there for both sessions. So my other girl vocal was my vocal from the bus. It was the original demo vocal. I didn't touch mine. And I flew to LA to get hers. So we recorded her vocal in LA. And same with half of my hometown. It was my original demo vocal. And then Kenny came to the studio in Nashville, and we did his vocal in Nashville.
Do you remember what studio?
It was Ross's house.
See, that's what I'm getting at, y'all. You recorded these vocals at a house, and I know that you've recorded vocals at my old house in East Nashville. We recorded vocals in Jason Massey's house. Like everybody's creating albums now in your house. I feel like a lot of people have the perspective that you're in a nice fancy studio downtown, and you know there's a lot of money involved. But the fact is, you can be on a tour bus. You can be at your own house. These hits are manufactured, I feel like, by the heart and by the emotion of capturing a vocal. So it doesn't matter where you capture that vocal.
Right.
Yeah, man, because
and like get creative, you know? Like you're allowed. There's no limits anymore. There's availability everywhere. So it's just like getting creative and making it happen.
So a country song. I want to know about the song, man. How did this one come about, and how did you go from your first two albums to saying a lyric about sex?
I wrote like 150 songs before this one particular weekend that I'm about to tell you about. And the whole direction that I was going was very Miss Me More. It was very sassy and empowered, and because Miss Me More was my biggest single. You know, I was like, okay, well, this works. This is what people identify as me now. So I'm going to make a whole record just like that. But that's just not where I was at. I was writing all these songs that had nothing to do with where I was at. I was not feeling empowered. I was not feeling sassy. I was feeling incredibly insecure and very vulnerable and exposed and like icky. And I wasn't comfortable enough in myself to say that out loud because I had a lot of shame because I'm living out my dream and things are wonderful and I shouldn't be feeling that way and all this shit. And this one particular weekend, I had Nicole Gallion and Jimmy Robbins come out with me for the weekend. And again, when you're friends with someone, you're able to have better conversations, which allows you to write better songs. And so I just was really honest. And in that weekend, we wrote Homecoming Queen, we wrote Club, and we wrote a country song. And that ended up being the beginning of the album because it just changed the course of writing from a different place and not trying to be what I thought radio wanted from me and just being where I was at, you know?
Yep. And I love all those songs. I really do. Club is awesome too. I love all the vocals in that. The whole production of that, you know, as the song grows, all the different vocals singing the chorus is such a vibe, man. You are freaking touring all the time. You're on TV shows. You're gone like more than you're home, obviously. How do you stay inspired, or like how do you continue this creativity? Like when I hear your new album, I'm like, gosh, it sounds like a whole nother version of her that I'm not even familiar with. So like, how do you tap into that and always have somewhere else to go? You know what I'm saying?
I think kind of what I was saying earlier, I think I stopped trying to write what I thought people wanted from me and just let myself write whatever I wanted to write. You know, like I almost lost me as a songwriter, like the truth of me as a songwriter, because I was always writing what I thought radio wanted from me. And I think it's something that I've just intentionally had to start protecting. Like I write, even in quarantine, I've been writing by myself again. I haven't done that in forever, you know?
I'm so glad you are, man. You get some good stuff there. Even if you bring it into someone else though, there's something about just getting quiet and seeing. I wrote a song by myself for the first time yesterday, and it's been years. And
Yeah.
I remember you doing that a lot. And I think that is a important part of, even if you are going to write with co-writers all the time, it's still important to sit down and get these ideas out and see how far you can take them by yourself, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
You've done all these things, and what's most that you're proud, between the TV shows, between the albums, between the tours, between all these features, like what are you most proud of this far, and all the things that you've accomplished in such a short time, man? I mean, think about 5 years ago and what we were doing, and think about what you're doing now, Kelsey. I mean, really think about it.
I know.
I mean, we were freaking out. I was in New York airport one time, and Kelsey texted me that Taylor Swift would send out a tweet. And do you remember that day? You remember how that happened?
I mean, it was insane. I was living in a studio apartment it was like government housing. I could never afford my rent. You helped me one time. Like, it was crazy. I was so broke, and Love Me wasn't even top 40 yet. It was like baby days. Yep. And Taylor tweeted that she was driving around listening to the EP, and she hashtagged "Yeah Boy" and "Love Me Like You Mean It," and it changed everything.
How long was it before she tweeted it, before y'all were like hanging out, you know?
I think between the tweet and then our first time hanging out might have been like 3 months or something. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, it's awesome when somebody that talented and somebody that you look up to endorses your music in a way of, this is cool. If there's anything that I haven't asked you that you feel like is important that maybe a young songwriter should hear, somebody that like wants to do kind of what you've done, what kind of advice or what would you tell them to kind of curb their time here and maybe prioritize what's important?
Work ethic is, if not more, than equally as important than talent.
Yes.
Because people come into town, whether it's Nashville or New York or LA or London or wherever, and they can sing people under the table and they can write people under the table, and that's great. But if they don't hustle and they don't write thank you notes and they don't remember names, it ain't gonna work. I
mean, there's so much more to this business than just creating music, right?
That's right.
I know I've been inspired by this interview. I know so many other people are, and I just can't freaking thank you enough for taking your time out of your day to do this.
Anytime.
See you later.